Also one. The story of a Wyoming man abducted by aliens and taken 163,000 light years from Earth. October 24th, 1974. 41-year-old Carl Hidgon is the foreman of an oil rig in Rawlins, Wyoming. He's been at the same job for 15 years and would work 6 days a week to support his family. This story begins when Higdon had gone to pick up his crew, but one of them was sick, so they were unable to work. Hidgon decided to take the day off and go elk hunting in the northern region of Medicine Bow National Park, which is located just 40 miles south of his home in Rawlins. In the book, Alien Abduction of the Wyoming Hunter, first-person story of Carl Hidgon, Higdon's wife, Marjorie, wrote that he was an experienced hunter, but he had not yet been to such a forest. Higdon traveled to the forest by car, but the road was not very good, so he walked over a small forested hill. When he was on the other side of the hill, he found a group of deer. Higdon had brought his new 7mm Magnum rifle. He aimed a shot at the largest male, but then something happened that he could not explain. Higdon blacked out, and when he regained consciousness, he realized a good amount of time had gone by. He stumbled through the forest in a daze, trying to figure out where he was and how he could get help. Marjorie Higdon became alarmed when her husband had not come home and called for a search party. Higdon's friends found him in a semi-conscious state and were concerned with his incoherent ramblings. He was then rushed to the emergency ward of the Carbon County Hospital, where he had trouble seeing, hearing, and speaking. He was taken care of by a nurse for 3 days, where he was mainly in an amnesiac state, unable to recall his own name or recognize his wife. Higdon's life changed after the incident for the worse, since he was too disoriented to work or to function normally, and in an act of desperation, he contacted the UFO agency Aerial Phenomena Research Organization, otherwise known as APRO, who sent Dr. Leo Sprinkle to investigate. At the time, Dr. Sprinkle had investigated 23 people using hypnotic techniques to assist them to recall the experience. Dr. Sprinkle serves as a psychologist at the University of Wyoming, whose primary interest is working with people who claim to not only see flying saucers, but claim to have some sort of abduction or contact experience. During the investigation of these cases, Dr. Sprinkles makes sure to establish the credibility of abductees' experiences by questioning those closely involved to the case, like the sheriff, doctors, nurses, members of the search party, locals, and friends. Many who knew Higdon stated he was a hardworking and honest man. Most of Higdon's memories were obtained through regressive hypnosis sessions, and what memory he lost started when he shot the bullet. Higdon was surprised when he noticed time stop. His gun did not recoil. His shot was silent and seemed to travel slow in midair, as if it was traveling through a wall of thick honey. Then it hit something invisible, 50 feet in front of him, before falling to the ground. He then noticed that the whole atmosphere around them became tense, as if filled with static electricity. As he went to go pick up the bullet, he saw that it was flattened, as if it had hit something very strong. The deer had fled, but Higdon noticed that he wasn't alone, as he heard noises of branches crunching on his right-hand side before spotting a human figure who had been hiding in the shadow of a tree. It was a tall, 6-foot entity, which appeared humanoid. It was wearing some skin-tight black bodysuit, which Higdon claimed was similar to a wetsuit scuba divers wear. At the top of the suit were a pair of harness-like straps that crisscrossed its chest, with a metallic belt around the waistline that was decorated with a large yellow 6-pointed star, and beneath the star was an insignia that the huntsman could not identify. The entity had yellowish skin, no ears, with small, deep-set eyes that lacked eyebrows, with the top of his head having very coarse hair which stood straight up, almost as if he had straw growing out of his head. It had a lipless, slit-like mouth that had 3 large teeth on the top and bottom of its mouth, a pair of antennas that grew from his forehead, and what frightened Higdon the most was a face that blended directly into its neck. The creature had very long arms with a pointy, almost drill bit-like appendage sticking out of its wrist where its right hand would be. nothing at all where the left hand would be. The alien approached Higdon and asked him, "How are you?" To his surprise, the alien spoke English. Higdon admitted that he was trying to stay calm, as he weakly responded, "Pretty good." The alien nodded and came closer. It didn't appear threatening. The alien then asked Higdon if he was hungry, but before he could respond, the alien sent a small clear cellophane package floating toward him which contained 4 pills. The creature said the pills would keep him full for the day. The hunter pulled out one and swallowed out of compulsion, and put the rest in his pocket. Higdon would later say he rarely took even aspirin. The alien then said his name was Ausso one, and pointed to where the invisible object was, which was a cube-shaped spaceship that decloaked itself, and Ausso one asked him, "Do you want to come along?" Higdon saw no entrance, no windows, no landing gear. The spaceship was 5 feet high, 5 feet wide, and 7 feet long. It was too small for even Higdon to fit. Before Higdon could answer, he states that it appeared that time leaped forward because his next recollection was being inside the cube-like craft. Seems to me like they might have teleported into the ship. Higdon did not understand how he fit into that tiny spaceship, but started panicking when he realized that he was tied down with some kind of ribbon-like material. When he calmed down, he saw a kind of force-field bubble in which 5 deer were floating. They were frozen, and he was sure they were the same deer he had seen on the hill. Higdon then saw 2 other entities that were the same race as Ausso one inside the spaceship. One creature approached the hunter and put a helmet on his head, which had 6 wires sticking out in all directions. And soon after, the ship took off while Higdon saw through the transparent walls how they went up. There was his car at the bottom of the hill, but the creature waved its drill and it disappeared. Then Higdon saw what he would describe as a blue ball that looked like a marble, which had to be Earth. The beings told Higdon they were going to their home, which they said was 163 light miles away. Higdon said the trip took less than a minute. They landed on a massive alien tower which resembled the Seattle Space Needle, conical in shape and about 100 feet tall. They arrived at dark with multicolored searchlights revolving around the building that were so bright they hurt Higdon's eyes. Higdon saw a group of 5 humanoid-looking people standing outside conversing. They appeared to be a middle-aged man, a young girl, 2 teenage girls, and a teenage boy. Ausso one floated out of the craft with Higdon floating along with him into the tower and up an elevator where they entered a room. There, Higdon stated he stood on a platform while a device moved out of the wall and scanned them before retracting back into the wall. Ausso one said he wasn't suitable for their purpose, so they would bring him home. Once they re-entered the cube ship, Ausso one explained that it was also a hunter and that its kind had been coming to explore Earth for many years in search of animals to breed to make into food pills. Each pill would feed its kind for 4 days. Ausso one also spoke of a different sun, and that their ocean had turned yellow, causing all the fish to die. The entity also showed Higdon a map of its planet, which was similar to the insignia below his belt buckle that he was unable to identify earlier, and told him the 9 planets of its solar system supplied the magnetic force for their power. Ausso examined Higdon's gun, stating that it wanted to keep the primitive weapon, but was not allowed to. Ausso one also mentioned that their kind wore black to protect them from our sun, as it would burn his kind when exposed to it. It then pointed his drill hand at Higdon's pocket and floated the package of remaining pills to himself, as well as returning Higdon's rifle. Once they had gone past a black void, they had arrived back to Earth, and Ausso one told Higdon it would see him before he was floated down to the ground. Higdon was completely disoriented and frightened as he stumbled around the forest and luckily was able to find his truck. He got in his truck, calling for help on his radio, shivering as he was extremely cold. Higdon had talked to his boss on the radio, but he was unable to communicate properly when he asked who he was and where he was. When the search party found him, it turned out that his car was parked at the bottom of a deep forest canyon, 5 miles from where it was originally left. There were no roads nearby, and there were no tire tracks in the gorge. Investigators till this day are baffled at how the car ended at the bottom of the canyon. When Higdon was found, he was so confused that he had little to say. He only kept repeating about the bullet, which flattened out when struck against something invisible. Higdon was given a medical evaluation after the event, and doctors were shocked that his scars left from his long-term tuberculosis had disappeared, and stones he had suffered a long time with had disappeared from his kidneys. A flattened bullet was found in the pocket of Higdon's jacket, and research showed that it could only get such damage if it hit a very hard surface, harder than wood or stone in the forest. Later, it turned out that people in the area where Higdon was abducted had seen strange lights in the sky. For years, Higdon was repeatedly called a fraud, and his case was dismissed as something made up by a man wanting some notoriety, but Higdon would pass polygraph tests and never exploited his story for fame or financial gains. It don't mean a hill of beans to me whether anybody believes it or not. I know what happened to me, Carl Hidgon said. If people want to take it at face value, that's fine. If they don't, that don't make any difference. I just want people to be aware in case something like this happens to them. Carl Hidgon worked through the trauma with the help of Dr. Sprinkles. He no longer was haunted by nightmares or doubted his own sanity, and eventually returned to the oil fields. Higdon's case is extremely interesting, but it leaves everyone with unanswered questions. Why did Ausso one abduct Higdon? Or was it a stroke of bad luck that Higdon stumbled upon the alien? What is this purpose that Higdon was not suitable for? How long have Ausso one's kind been coming to Earth? The list goes on and on. Who knows if we will ever get answers. Higdon retired in 1997 and relocated to Texas, where he was born. Higdon died January 26, 2022 in Temple, Texas, of COVID pneumonia.